And we're back. Okay. Let's try this again. The thing that sucks is like when I'm starting to get hits in on him, the younger prince specifically in phase 2, you start to feel like you're in a good rhythm, and then he kind of teleports away and resets. Whereas in phase 1, I feel like you're able to get into that rhythm and kind of stick with it for a little bit longer. It seems like it. The question is, though, do we hit 600 tonight? Seems likely. I don't know. Depends on how these fights go. Oh, that was super close. A little lucky there. Alright, let's go. Nope. 565. Oh, jeez. It's such a different feeling from the beginning of this playthrough. Where, I'm dying a few times, having a little trouble here and there, but, I usually take down a boss within the first 10 tries. It's no big deal. Or sometimes you get the Abyss Watchers, and it's like, oh man, I died 16 times against them. I can't believe that. And now we're here, and it's like, yeah, well. Oh, I'm already on attempt 20? Whatever. We're just getting started. And like I said before, like you can only laugh at it, at like just the sheer absurdity of all of this. That's how it goes. Man. Let's get it. Very good. I don't know what I was doing there. Thing is, like, most of his attacks really, with a couple exceptions, they're not super hard to dodge. At least in phase 1. Phase 2 can be kind of rough, depending on a number of things. But we have had this prisoner's chain on for a little bit, so I'm gonna put it back to the Karthus Blood Ring. See if I can feel any sort of difference. You definitely see the difference in health, for sure. But just kind of out of curiosity to see if there's any... If I feel like there's anything noticeable. And then we might switch back to it, I don't know. We're not going to do very, like, scientific test on this, but we'll just see, like, how it feels, you know? Maybe I beat him this try. I doubt it, but crazier things have happened. Okay. We'll give him a few tries with this, the Karthus ring on, just to see. I don't think that attack is a one-hit KO, though, with the Prisoner's ring on. So it's kind of your difference maker. And I guess, like, unless this Karthus ring, like, unless there's something, some attack specifically in this fight I'm having trouble rolling through, like, it feels like the Karthus ring might not be super effective in this. I don't know. Cause we got this ring for the Dancer fight, if you remember. And I do feel like that definitely helped with certain attacks. I just don't know if there's really any attacks here that would be super helpful against. Maybe there's a couple. Get him. Super solid phase 1. Let's keep this momentum. Let's bring it into phase 2. That might be way too close for my liking. But I'll take it. I rolled. I rolled. The difficulty in the last three fights really comes in the fact that they're long. It's one of those, like, when I first fought the Nameless King, my first character, I was like, wow, this is so hard. It's probably the hardest fight in the game. And I've kind of changed my mind about that. I feel like Champion Gundyr might be the hardest, to me at least. I don't know. I bounce back and forth sometimes. But the more and more I fought him, the Nameless King, the more and more it was like, this guy actually, he's not really that bad. Like, he's not hard. The thing that's hard about it, I mean, he is hard. Like, he's, you know, but he's not as bad as I originally thought he was. What made it so hard for me that for the first couple of times was that it's a long fight. You know, there's two phases. The first one, you know, say what you will about that, but, like, actually the phase 2, like, once you kind of get used to it, it's not too bad. It's just you got to survive that whole fight. And so kind of a similar thing here for this one and the final boss is it is two fights essentially. And so, like, you separate them out and they're not really that bad alone, but with how long they are, it's like it's kind of like what I've said many times before with Soul Level 1 is the key here is making these bosses as short as you possibly can. Like, the longer that boss fight takes, the more time, the more chances you have to screw up. And so the fact that these fights are so long is kind of the thing that's going to make them tough. Because you got a lot more time to mess up. Can I get it? Nope. Bad positioning. There we go. I need my stamina though. Again, another really good phase 1. Let's keep that up so I have more more attempts against phase 2 here. Yeah, I'm not gonna risk that. The pine resin. Here we go. Yep. Oh, yeah. So great. Awesome. Awesome. What was my, like, my optimistic prediction? Like, oh yeah, maybe in the 30s. Probably like 60s though. How many times I died against that guy? 14. I beat him faster than the Abyss Watchers. 2 bosses left. That guy's no problem. It's a great game. Oh, that's good. That is so good. It feels great. So I guess the rest of the time tonight is Nameless King, all him. Like I said, I really want to save the final boss for last. It feels kind of fitting to make sure that that is the final fight. As tempting as it is to go for him now. Yeah, okay, yeah. I like that. That feels pretty good. Now that we've, done that. Oh, that was early. I would love to be able to take Nameless King down tonight, too. But I don't know. I don't know. So, okay. So, 14 total for the princes. That went so much better than I expected it to. We are actually on we have died 14 times against Nameless King. What was interesting there, I'll say it very quickly and then we'll keep going. So what happens in that fight, like, if you're watching this, I'm sure you know, when he falls the second time, and so the younger prince falls to the ground, kind of revives him, climbs back up on his back, it gives you a good, what happens there is typically the younger prince is still alive, right, at that point, and so it gives you a chance to do more damage to him before he climbs back on his back, and then the fight kind of resets, but typically you get a few hits and then you back up because there's like a pulse or whatever. It felt like it waited longer. It felt like I had more time to do more hits on him. Maybe it just seemed that way and that's not really how it was, but it seemed like there was actually more time, or like he waited longer to do that pulse, which usually does a pretty good amount of damage. Although I've read that it's not a one-hit KO, because I remember thinking in my head, reading someone say, hey, when you're doing to level 1, just go ahead and take the hit there because you'll get more swings in. But I was fine. And then luckily you can damage him when he's climbing back on. Because I was scared that he would climb back on, reset, and I would die. Luckily it lets you damage him in that case, so I was able to finish him off there. So that was interesting. So, Nameless King. Okay, here we go. 2 bosses left. Alright. See, that's I feel really good about that stuff. When it's dying 14 times, yeah, whatever. But that's not that bad. It feels like to me that's enough to be alright, I've kind of I've taken a good pace of learning from my mistakes, learning what I need to work on, fixing the things that I'm doing wrong, and then capitalizing off of anything the boss does that I can do extra damage on, and then I win. And that's a pretty nice, somewhat quick flow of improvements there. Now let's see if I can do the same against this guy. So it's just before. Yeah, it's a little before. If I can get the timing down on that, that'll be really nice too. I really need to get into a flow where I get phase 1 of this fight down to a science. That felt a little early, but I kind of still dodged it, so I feel a little lucky there. You're gonna do the lightning? Yeah. Let's see how much the fire boost here. Okay. Just kidding. Very good. 270. I think that's a pretty good boost. I don't remember exactly what I was doing against this guy. I'll have to check again. Remember to check at some point. Either way, it's still decent. It's good damage. Fire. Got it. Alright, so that's phase 1. Went pretty well. I did use 2 Estus, but I still got 10, so that's good. I'd like to be able to get a little ways into phase 2. I don't expect to beat him here. But I really need, I need practice on phase 2. And we definitely need to figure out what exactly is a one-hit KO and what's not. This is so cool. This is definitely one of my favorite fights in the game. I know I think I've probably said that before, but just like visually, it's so cool. And just look at this guy, like he looks cool. Yikes. Usually doesn't open with that. Alright, let's see what normal damage does. Okay, just kidding. Rolled a little too soon there. We're probably just gonna go 2 hours tonight, so we've got maybe about 40 minutes left on the stream. And I'm just gonna cut it off there because we have beaten a boss, so we have made that progress. And that's usually like if I do go over 2 hours, usually it's because we didn't beat a boss yet. So we try to make that happen, but because we have beat one, I'm okay ending at 2 hours. That said, if we don't beat Nameless King when that time comes, I will go up against the final boss at least once. Just to see how that goes and how quickly I die. Alright, good damage to start. Let's fire. Roll. Got it. 1, 2, 3. If only I did that kind of damage against this guy in phase 2. Make things a lot easier. Or at least like that percentage of its health bar. And dodge. You bring in the lightning? Nope. How about now? Yeah, you are. Dodge. I was hoping I'd get his head to fall. Do a crit. And dodge. Starting to get that timing down. There we go. God, phase 1 went almost perfect. Or, yeah, basically perfectly. Did I get hit? I don't think I got hit at all. So that's about as good as you can get. Now let's actually do damage against this guy. Man. I got a feeling most of his attacks are going to be one hit. Unfortunately. And that could give us a lot of trouble. Huh. Next time we'll use this now, and this time. And see if maybe... Let's see what kind of difference. I was in like the high 100s, I think, on him. With just like one swing. Which looks like this might be a fight where taking more than one swing is just asking to die. Perhaps. Unless we figure him out. Right, sometimes he does that follow-up. man, I don't know. I mean, we could spend the last 30 minutes on the final boss and just see how that goes. And maybe, like, I don't know. I guess I don't care too much if the final boss isn't the final guy that we take down in this run. It doesn't really matter. Because, I mean, maybe the final boss, like, I actually get pretty quick. I doubt it, but... Either way, it's going to be one of the two. We'll give this guy a few more tries. I would like to see what the final boss has in store for me at this level. The fact that I've made it this far, I feel really great about, because I know that there's... after beating the game once, I thought briefly about a Soul Level 1 run before I kind of like made a decision to try it. And I felt like, I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to do it, you know, there's some bosses I don't think I'll be able to get at Soul Level 1, and the fact that I have been able to get as far as I have, is really cool. I feel great about that, so. We're not done just yet, though. Alright, fire roll. Got it. Nice. Fire roll. Got it. It's gonna be close, not quite. Nope. Alright, well that's a one-hit KO too. I'd also say, like, you know, maybe it's more appropriate to say, like, at the end of the run, as like a giving thanks and stuff, but the One Bros subreddit is great and was an immense help in kind of helping plan out some, a few different things I tried on this run so far. Especially because, like, there's a lot of, like, people who will finish their Soul Level 1 run and then immediately go and make a big post and kind of give, like, a breakdown of, like, what they did and some tips and some different strategies. And usually they do for each boss as well. And so I had one pulled up because I was reading some stuff earlier, and for the Nameless King, his first thing he says is just F this boss. And I was like, yeah, I could see that. Alright, let's go for the final boss. So that's going to leave us at 19 so far for Nameless King. $573 total. We'll spend the last 30 minutes of the stream going against last boss in this game. We still have two left, him and Nameless King, of course. I get the feeling Nameless King might be an ordeal in and of himself. It depends. I want to read up more on him too. For the next stream, figure out, like, is everything one hit? Like, is it most of his attacks? You know, is there any other strategies I should keep in mind? So I need to place the Lord Souls upon their throne. I don't think I've done any of them yet. Yeah. I love the final boss of this game. I like just about everything about it. The first phase and what it like represents, like especially lore wise, like if you think about like what the first phase represents and what's phase 2 and what happens there, and it's like, yes, all of this is great. This is what this final boss should be, you know, like this is what it should be about, and it's so good. Okay. I have a better ideal after. Oh, poor Ludlith. I'll have a better ideal once we have a few runs against the final boss, but I don't know. I think somewhere in the 600s, maybe close to 700. That seems feasible. With 2 bosses remaining, Nameless King is going to take a while. I can feel that. Like, just, you know, we fought him 19 times so far, and I can feel it. Like, this feels very similar to the other few bosses that were, you know, 70, 80, over 100 deaths just on their own. So Nameless King, I know, is going to take some time. And it feels like, I don't know, it feels like I might have a bit of practice to do on phase 2. But hopefully, you know, it really depends. There's a couple, in phase 1 of the final boss, there's a couple parts that I have some trouble with. And phase 2, I don't think really is that bad. It depends. It depends on like how many of his attacks are one-hit KOs. Like, that's going to be a key factor as well. I don't think he's typically. I don't know. We'll talk about it more when we get there. This whole end sequence is just really, really cool. And of course, it's still just a level 1. I do remember my first playthrough walking out here and just being like, oh no. The view reminded me a lot of if you remember like the Bloodborne DLC. There's like an early part where you look out and like everything's all like collided and weird like that, and it felt very familiar in that respect. I also like never thought about it until earlier. I saw like a tweet with a picture of this with kind of the realization of like it's actually a big tree. So you know. All right. Do we need to light this? Let's light it. Alright, so we got a little under 30 minutes to go for tonight's stream. We're just gonna go up against this guy. See what happens, and then we'll come back tomorrow night, probably around 9 p.m. Probably, somewhere around that time. And we'll see what happens. I'm not expecting for this playthrough to end tomorrow night, though. With there still being 2 bosses left. I mean, unless we beat this guy quick, which I don't think is going to happen. We're probably looking at Monday to Tuesday will probably be the finale. It really just depends on how long the Nameless King ends up taking me. But here we go. Let's go ahead and apply this and see what we got. Alright, Soul of Cinder. We are here. Okay, that's a good bit of damage. Doing decent damage right now. It's about 215. It's actually kind of what I want, right? For him to be all sorcerer. No, that's not what I want. I have trouble dodging this. Yeah. Similar to Champion Gundyr, actually, I have trouble with this specific phase, and there's another phase I have trouble with. So I'm at 202 without it. It's actually not a huge increase overall. Alright, now this is the part in phase 1 I have the most trouble with, is this specific form, we'll call it. So hopefully he switches out pretty quick. Yeah, ah, crap. That went okay. It was going okay. We'll say that. Because again, I almost, I guess I don't know. It depends. I feel like phase 1 is probably harder. Maybe. And that's just because I feel like phase 2 is so it's so similar to another fight that I kind of feel like I have more practice on it. So I don't know. We'll see. That went well. I thought I was going to get to phase 2 there, but screwed up right at the end. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the 10 extra points of damage still is going to add up. But it's not a huge difference. Fortunately, I don't think you can crit there. Need to watch my stamina. Haven't seen a one hit just yet. Oh, not that. I don't. When he switches to that weapon, I always just have a lot of trouble. Hopefully, he gets out of it or something. Yeah. Switch the magic. I guess that's a little better. Not by much. Seems like he gives you enough time to heal, if need be. I think phase 2 is a little harder to heal. Alright, that's one hit. I guess, yeah, I don't know. I have plenty, so I might as well use these. The 10 extra points will add up. So I probably would have had him decently close there. Or at least similar to where I had him my first run. Actually applied that way too soon. I don't know why I did it back there. That's okay. He's aggressive, but he's not so aggressive that I wouldn't have time to reapply it when it goes out, so. It's actually there's probably a better pine resin to use against him, to be honest. Oh, he's got range on that, though. So I need to watch out. Oh, man. Okay. All right. Round 4. Rolled too early there. It's about a little under 20 minutes left. Okay. I'd like to get to phase 2 by the end of the night. I need to be careful about taking that second swing. It's probably a bit too aggressive for this fight. I'm like able to get away with it sometimes, and he's not like one-shotting me, so I keep doing it. Oh, that was so close. Yeah. That's what happens when you're not being careful. It's okay. I love all these like swords and different weapons, and it's great. Oh, nice. That was dumb. Give me space. Yep. Like I said, it's that weapon and the like curved sword. Those are the two specific parts of phase 1 that I typically have trouble with. Okay, so that follow-up is a one-hit kill. $580. So we probably got a handful of runs in us left for tonight. But no matter what happens here, I feel good. We took down the princes much faster than I was expecting. A lot faster. And it's great. I have been, like, as we've been approaching the ending, I have been secretly hoping that there'd be one boss I would, like, take down the first try, or, like, take down really pretty quick compared to a lot of these late game fights. So I guess we'll count that. Oh, that sword. And that one. Yeah. You're gonna do that? I need to figure out how to deal with this sword. That's the thing, like, I've got to figure that out. That, or just hope that I get lucky and that he doesn't switch to it. And in the first phase, like, I'm able to kill him quick enough. But I doubt that's gonna happen. 50 minutes. Alright. Soul of Cinder. Where is... So we're actually going to try the Chloranthy ring. So I'm noticing... Again, that would just be another added... I'm assuming that stacks with all my other like added boosts to recovery, stamina recovery speed. I'm noticing that like I need to be aggressive, and it's probably good to like roll, hit, and that's pretty... It's working well, but the issue is I'm draining stamina pretty quick, and I'm not recovering it fast enough. So we'll see if maybe this ring helps a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't damage my roll invincibility too much. Hopefully I'll still be in a good roll here, but we'll see. That was close. I was expecting him to kind of do the upwards slash there, but nope. Changed it up on me. $583. So I guess like now would be a good time to talk about it, really, as I've just, throughout the playthrough discussing different elements of this game, and sometimes other Dark Souls and Bloodborne and Demon Souls and whatever. So like, okay, let's get into it. I like Dark Souls 2 a lot. Certainly not my favorite, and I get the issues, I get the complaints. But it was one of those things where I felt like shortly, I don't want to misrepresent it at all. It felt like there was a bit of a backlash against that game, especially like right after release. For some very specific reasons. And I don't know, it was one of those weird things where I guess it was a moment for me that I realized there are some things about these games that... or some negatives, I guess you would say. Like, there were things about Dark Souls 2 that just flat out did not bother me in the way that they bothered other people. And I think the same might be the case for this game. There are, it wasn't until after I beat Dark Souls 3, and read some other people commenting on some of its heavy reliance on fan service stuff, and that they didn't like that. And that's totally fine. But it was one of those moments where I realized, wow, like, that actually doesn't really bother me at all. With, like, maybe one or two exceptions, I was completely okay with it. Like, when I walked into Firelink Shrine, and it said Firelink Shrine, I was, like, losing my mind. And I guess, like, I am that person that they're aiming for, right? And I don't know. Does that make me part of the problem? Maybe. But I was like, yeah, it's awesome. And I think that's also indicative of my attitude over the years of just being like, I just want to be excited about video games, And that, I don't mean to, hopefully that doesn't come across wrong. It is A-okay if you don't like fan service. I've had conversations with people about that in this game, right? And there are one or two things in this game specifically, fan service kind of things, like the Storm Ruler being in this game is a little weird. Like, there's no other reason other than it being straight up fan service, and I'm okay with it being in the game. However, that boss fight itself, I wish that boss fight was different, It's nice for a Soul Level 1 run, because it makes it real easy. But that fight, I feel like, could be really cool if it was something else. So back to Dark Souls 2, right? I totally get the complaints of Dark Souls 2. I totally understand them. And I don't know, like, if I would rank them, for me, Dark Souls 2 probably would be at the bottom. But at the same time, these are 5 games that I consider to be the cream of the crop. Like, in their respective years, these are games that I consider to be either the best or in, like, my top 3 as far as like, game of the years are concerned, right? Bloodborne, best game I played last year. Dark Souls 1, best game I played of that year. Dark Souls 2, probably one of the best games I played of that year. Demon Souls, definitely the best game I played 2009, right? Dark Souls 3, it's probably gonna be one of the best games I played this year. So, like, it was just this moment where I realized a lot of the things people complained about in Dark Souls 2 didn't really bother me that much. All this is to say, in relation to the final bosses of each game, right? Like, for Demon Souls, I consider, like, the final boss in Demon Souls, like, some people are like, oh, it's so easy and whatever. It's like, no, I mean, yeah. Like, but the real final boss is not, who you think it is, right? Like, the real final boss is the False King, I believe is what he's called. And that fight's hard. But it's a really cool fight. And the final boss in Dark Souls 1 is super cool. Final boss in Bloodborne, super cool. Well, both of them are super cool. Final boss in this game, super cool. Final boss in Demon Souls or Dark Souls 2, I don't really care for it. Like, in comparison, I like it, but I don't care for it, and I don't care for the arena. So, like, this location, super cool. The place where you fight the final boss in Bloodborne, super great. Same for the other games, right? Dark Souls 2, it's kind of a weak spot. At least for me. I'm doing real poorly now because I'm not focusing. Too busy talking about how great these games are. 587. Alright, so where are we at? 56 minutes. So we'll cut it in about 5 or so. We'll give them a few more tries. But I don't know. It's so tough to rank these games, really. But I never really have ever been super outspoken about Dark Souls 2. I think Dark Souls 2 is fantastic. It's incredible. It's maybe it's so weird because it's like, yeah, it's the weakest one of these games, but then you kind of keep in mind the quality of these games too. So I don't know. It's strange. At the same time, like, I don't know. It's so weird. It's hard. It's strange to talk about because, like, the DLC for Dark Souls 2 is so good. It's next level. It just makes me feel weird, like, because I've started to see some people say the same about Dark Souls 3, where it's like, oh, these games are actually not great, or not very good, and it always confuses me. To each their own, though. But I think that's what happens with a series like this, right? You have a very extremely dedicated fan base and a really great community for the most part. Like, I feel like most people I meet are just super nice people. We typically feel kind of like somewhat different about certain elements of these games, and I think that's great. Like, it's awesome. Especially like if you read the You Died book. Like, you have like testimonies from dozens and dozens of people who like these games for totally different reasons, and it's great. It's so cool because you don't see that often, it's feels unique, and it is weird. I was thinking about it a lot today about this being kind of it for the series after the DLC, and that's fine. And like, I've kind of like reached my peace with it, where it's like, yeah, this game, it deserves a break. It's been yearly for like 3 years now, and it's time. It's time to go on to something different, and that's cool. Like, From Software is in like such an interesting place right now. Especially before, like, it's so it's such a different outlook for them compared to like before Demon Souls. And it gets kind of hard to separate yourself from Dark Souls 3 because it's new. You know, it's very fresh in your mind, and there's part of me that wants to just jump up and be like, this is my favorite of the 5 games, you know, and there are elements of it that are, I think. Whereas Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls, Demon Souls is always going to be special for me. Like, that was I got that the day it came out after hearing all of this buzz, and I just got completely wrapped up in it. Like, never, like, there's maybe been 1 or 2 games before it ever that I've gotten so invested in the way I did for Demon Souls when it first came out, and it was such a, like, phenomena. And then, of course, Dark Souls was the realization of that, in a way. So those 2 games will always be, for me, one of a kind, in a way. I kind of group them together. And it's always going to be that, whether I think they're the best or not, I will always see them as being kind of the most important. For obvious reasons. It's, you know, when you kick off an IP or a franchise in such a way, I mean, I guess specifically for Dark Souls, like, the way that landed and was such a, like, huge hit, reviewed super well, great word of mouth, you know, everyone's talking about it for all of these different reasons, and it became this, like, phenomena, in a way, this cult, like, favorite. It's no Call of Duty or anything, but it was doing so much better than you would think it would, and it's like, From Software did this, and it's like, wait a minute, what? Really? And of course, you think about, like, Miyazaki's, like, rise into this, you know, he's the president of that company now. And it's super awesome. It's really, like, just encouraging. It's this really positive story. And so naturally, Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, they're gonna be iterative just because that's how that works. I was thinking about Bloodborne earlier and how, like, even though these games have essentially been annualized over the past few years, we'll do 1 or 2 more runs, go a little over an hour. Bloodborne obviously it's the same kind of game, but it was so different too. There was a big difference, and it felt new in the way that a Dark Souls 2 or 3 can't. At least somewhat new. And so it was, and I think maybe that's why it hasn't bothered me too much, that it's, even now, hasn't bothered me that it's been a yearly thing, because I've been like, yeah, just give me more. But it was great to, and I was thinking maybe Bloodborne's the reason why, for me specifically, because it was so new, it was so fresh, and it was different. And maybe it would have been different if Dark Souls 3 came out last year, and maybe I would have felt it more. I don't really play Call of Duty at all, but I feel like that, in a way, it's cool that they have different teams making the main game each year, and so, like, whether or not it works out to be that way, I guess ideally you would have games that kind of feel unique, and maybe that's not the case. Doesn't seem like it is. But in an ideal world, you know, you would have that, and so I guess maybe from Dark Souls 2 to Bloodborne, and then back to Dark Souls 3, it's been a yearly thing, but at the same time, there have been differences. So I don't know. Regardless, you know, even though I could sit here and be like, I could just take these games for a few more years, it's cool to see it end like this. I think that's one of the reasons why I like Dark Souls 3 as much as I do, beyond it just being a really, really good Souls game, is it feels like... It felt like they're ending on their own terms, From Software is. And you don't see that often in video games. It's typically you have a successful series, and it's like, no, you need to keep making these. And, you know, they're probably... I guess Namco, if they own the IP, I guess they could technically, like... I don't know exactly how it would work, but I mean, I guess they could make a new one without From. Don't do that, please. I don't think it's going to happen, though. At least not like a Dark Souls 4 or anything. This whole game feels like it is that From ending on their own terms, and just even, like, story and lore-wise, this feels like the end. Even though there's a very cyclical, like, cycle nature to this. This feels like it. This feels like the end of this, and it's really cool just to see it play out in that way. So I guess that might be another reason why I'm okay with the heavy fan service. It's kind of like why I like Metal Gear Solid 4 so much, and why I'm bummed out Metal Gear Solid 5 ended up the way it did. Because to me, it feels like Metal Gear Solid 4 should have been it. It should have been the end. The way that game ends, it felt similar to Dark Souls 3 in that way, where it felt like they were ending it. They were putting a cap on it, and that was it. And then MGS5 happened, and now I'm really bummed out. This has been a strange final 20 minutes. Let's give him one more go, and I'll actually like focus in on this fight, and then we'll call it. Instead of ranting about, not even ranting, instead of just going off about whatever. Video games are great. I like this game quite a bit. I'm also ready to, between finishing this run and finishing up the platinum, I'm ready to retire it for a few months until the DLC is out. And then we'll be back here. Dying hundreds of times to DLC bosses at Soul Level 1. It's gonna be the best. Can't wait. Alright, let's get into gear. This is the run. Alright, I think that's gonna do it for tonight. We did make progress. We have 2 bosses remaining. We are so very close to the end of the Soul Level 1. The nightmare is almost over. Hopefully, you enjoyed my random just ramble about Dark Souls in general. We are gonna end on 22 deaths for the Lord of Cinder. We're at 19 on Nameless King. So those are our last 2 bosses. Tomorrow we'll be back around 9 p.m. probably. Maybe a little bit later. It all depends. And then our goal will just be to take down one of those 2 fights. It doesn't really matter which. I guess I'll have to decide that in the next day or so. But as usual, thank you for watching. Let me know what you... I mean, now that we're kind of coming to the end, if you want to like share your thoughts on kind of the franchise as a whole. We'll throw in Demons and Bloodborne in there as well. You know, it's been a crazy, God, like 7 years